You won't be driving in a car. You won't be living in a house. You won't be having breakfast. You won't be having lunch. You won't be having dinner. Water is in everything that we do.
To save humanity, Wall Street wants to start a revolution. Make water profitable and create water markets, just like oil markets.
Water falls from the sky, therefore it should be free. Whenever I hear that, I always say, diamonds occur in nature and they're not free.
It's a financial product, like any other financial product.
The market is changing a bit over the last couple of weeks. It's around that $485 to $495 a megalitre mark today.
We're just at the beginning of this water financial revolution.
The blue gold rush has begun. Can anyone stop it?
The human right to water means that it's not a charity, it's an issue of justice. This is the issue of our time. This is the crisis of our time.
With financial pressure on human mobilization rising, the battle over water has already begun. Who will come out on top? The planet, the people, or the markets? London, the financial capital of Europe. Here is where the relationship between water and finance first began 30 years ago. At the time, it was simply a question of commending the virtues of privatization. It was Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister at the time, who championed the cause.
Already privatized, that even socialist France knows privatized water is a better deal than nationalized water. That the water privatization, I believe, will go very successfully indeed.
What happened was the entire system, the entire physical system, as well as the concession, was sold to the private companies. Every drop of water in the pipes is a private commodity. One of the first things some of the companies did was to start cutting off water supply to people who hadn't paid their bills.
The number of people who've had their water cut off for failing to pay their bills has almost trebled in a year.
One company, for example, disconnected 11,000 customers, and as far as the company was concerned, they could stay disconnected. If they didn't pay their bills, they didn't get any water.
I was out on Wednesday, I come back 9 o'clock and I got no water.
How far do you have to come?
Right the way across there, up on the top floor.
How many times do you think you'll have to make this journey then during the day?
Well, I've just come down again, well, probably another 4 or 5 times. I mean, you've got to have something to drink, haven't you? You've got to do some cooking. We didn't even have to queue for this during the wartime.
I said myself, it's disgusting.
But from the market perspective, that doesn't matter. The market couldn't care less if people die of cholera. Really, that's not their job. Their job is making money, and they've done that very well.
Finally, 10 years later, a law is passed that prohibits companies from cutting off the water supply to those who haven't paid their bills. But this is not enough to deter the financiers. On the contrary, in the early 2000s, a new generation of traders enter the world of water, namely private equity funds, or vulture funds. They are hungry and completely unaccountable.
They may be funds which have a 10-year life, and they need to get their returns over that decade that they will be the owners, and then they need to find a new owner. So you have a lot of international investors, people who may never have been to a water plant in Yorkshire at all, or may never have been to Yorkshire.
Finance is a wonderful business, and for all these techniques, you don't need to know anything about water, and you don't need to care anything about water.
The new owners arrive from Canada, Hong Kong, and Malaysia. In London, Thames Water, the distribution authority that covers 20% of the country, is bought by the Australian-based Macquarie funds.
I was aware of Macquarie. I mean, they were quite a famous institution in Australia, where they'd been known as something, I think they were called the Millionaire's Factory, because so many people who worked at Macquarie became very rich as a result of the bonuses that they earned.
Macquarie were one of the first private equity companies to say these are good places to be. One of the simple reasons for that is, if you observe, there is and is going to be population growth. If there's population growth, there's going to be more water being drunk.
David Hall is the man who revealed this water scandal. In 2017, he published a study in which he detailed 30 years of abusive practices. Rising bills, soaring dividends to shareholders, and tax evasion. A caricature of financial capitalism.
We ended up concluding that about £2.5 billion per year was being taken out of the system by private capital. Now, the main reason for that was that the dividends they were paying themselves were very high and very regular.
So these companies were perfect cash machines.
They still are. They still are. Everybody believes correctly that we are being swindled by the water companies.
What David Hall's study then did was it said, is this really how you think that essential services should be exploited, I think is the best way, by financial interests so aggressively?
The Australia-based Macquarie Funds was a shareholder in Thames Water for just over 10 years. When it sold its final share in the company in March 2017, Macquarie says it had just over $13 billion of debt.
Somebody at that point will have to repay all those borrowing. Well, there's only one source of money in the whole water industry, and that is the customer. And when the customer has to repay those borrowings, that will affect the charges they have to pay. And of course, the owners will never return the dividends they've taken out. Those have just gone. I think they take a view that this is a victimless crime. The funny thing about the UK's experience with water privatisation is no one else in the developed world has done it. It's a one-off. And sometimes you have to ask yourself, why is it?
Today, over 80% of Britons would like to go back to a time when water was a common, public, and essentially free resource. But this concept is slipping away.
Victorian homes sweltered through another 24 hours of extreme heat. Overnight, it barely dipped below 30 degrees in many parts of the state, with temperatures soaring into the mid to high 40s during the day.
There's fire conditions, particularly through South Australia, where the mid-north has been rated as catastrophic and the Mount Lofty Ranges has been rated as extreme. It remains extremely hot through the southeast today, with temperatures 10 to 16 degrees above average. Strengthening northerly winds ahead of the train.
Australia, on the front line of climate change. Here, drought is a part of everyday life. In this parched country, Australians are getting closer and closer to tomorrow's world. A world where water is a scarce and expensive resource. Bart Dohan is a dairy farmer who lives in New South Wales, one of the driest regions in the country. For many months now, his reserves have been empty. The only solution for feeding his animals is to buy extra water on the private market.
Come on, girl, get on. Where's the girl? Today, to run just for my cows, it cost me close to $500,000 for 12 months of water. $500,000.
Can you afford that?
It would put a great deal of strain on us if we did it. A great deal of strain. Okay. Like we know a farmer in the last 3 months has already spent $1 million on water. A storm could come through tomorrow and wipe it all out too. So they've spent the money, but it's still a gamble from whether it's going to work or not. We're trying our best to keep the cows alive because we can't afford the water to grow crops for the cows. We can't afford a real lot of grain. They're getting very little or no grain at all at the moment. So they're producing 50% less than what they should be for this time of year. It's just survival mode. Try and survive, keep our cows going, and try and get out the other end of it. Australia used to be a place of mates and helping each other out, but now it's sort of like dog eat dog world at the moment, especially with the water policy.
Water has become like gold. It is bought and sold with a single click, thanks to mobile phones and an application connected to the market, available 24 hours a day. Its price changes daily, depending on supply and demand.
It's there, I can touch it, I can paddle my feet in it, but I can't use it. Not unless I've got that money.
Once the transaction is approved, irrigation channel valves open automatically and pour out millions of litres to customers, those who can pay.
People are just taking water from us, and it's taking our life, It's taking our food from our table, more or less. Why we're doing it is hopefully next year the rivers are full and that we don't have to go back onto that open market to buy water again. Will it happen? Will it not? We don't know. We might as well play Russian roulette.
To combat water shortages, the Australian government has chosen to ration it. Each year, it allocates a quota to the major water consumers: farmers, industrialists, and cities. This is calculated based on activity, existing reserves, and weather forecasts. Along with this new law, called the Water Act, water markets have been created where anyone can come and purchase additional rights or sell some of their own.
I just want to give you a call as the market is changing a bit over the last couple of weeks since we last spoke and changed our water down to 520. And we're seeing trading really happening around that $485 to $495 a megalitre mark.
Harding from Waterfind. Thanks, Pete. Look forward to hearing from you.
In just 10 years, the water business has become the new El Dorado with a turnover of $2 billion per year.
Morning. Yeah, I am. 9 o'clock, first thing. Yeah.
Waterfind is the world's leading water stock exchange. They work with the megalitre, a unit of measurement equivalent to 1 million litres.
Some of my team here call me the water market pioneer. So I'd like to say that I'm a pioneer in the world. How much more has he got in that order to go then?
Well, since I had to do a manual transfer, he's only got, I think he had a balance of 6 megs. It was
okay.
It was bugger
so
all.
we'll reset that again then. And
He had a remaining balance of 304 megalitres.
Yeah.
That we secured that.
Yeah.
So I did a manual transfer for 250 megs. Plus
So prices today are around the $500 per megalitre or per million litres. You've got I think it's cheap. What, $500? What's that? 300 euros or 350 euros for 1 million litres of water? I'd say it's pretty cheap when you look at it from that perspective. Isn't it a good thing that we are finally putting a value on this resource? Because in putting a value on it, we're going to respect it more.
In this new world, every drop counts. Water is no longer a natural resource, but a commodity. In the world of water markets, the key players are the agricultural industry, as is the case with Webster, the country's largest producer of almonds. The directors of this company are among the richest water owners, at the head of a reserve worth more than $200 million. Their almonds are mass cultivated and exported all over the world. In relation to the amount of water used, this is their most profitable crop. On this farm, Brendan Barry has the title of Water Manager. This is a new area of expertise.
That there, that's a wood colony. No, they're not quite ready. But if you grab that.
They're big.
Yeah, they're bigger, but the taste of them is just a different flavour.
But the nonpareil are the real.
Nonpareil's There's other nuts bigger than that, but these are the best seller, that's why. And they crop pretty well, so that's why everyone sort of keep them as 50% of the orchard.
Yeah.
They're easiest to market and whatnot.
The total value of our water is more valuable than all the land we hold or the plant and equipment or the livestock that we hold. The water market in this area this year has gone from about $320 per megalitre to over $700 per megalitre, and that's in a period of around 5 months. And
Double price.
Double the price. But that's how it works.
January on Aljazeera.
It's 10 years since the Arab Spring sought to bring change to the Middle East. Aljazeera looks into how successful the revolutions were.
A new documentary series examines the history and geopolitics of drug trafficking and the way states and drug lords have used it as an instrument of power.
As vaccinations are being rolled out around the world, hope of returning to normal comes back again.
With media trends constantly changing, Listening Post continues to analyse how the news is covered.
After one of the most intense election campaigns, the US is set to inaugurate its 46th president.
January on Aljazeera.
The BBC's journalism is revered around the world, but its close relationship with the British state has always placed limits on its independence.
I love the fact that it exists. I hate some of the things it does.
Flo Phillips explores the little-known, century-long tussle between the BBC and the UK government and considers the current threats to its future.
If the government has it in for the BBC, watch out, BBC, the enemy's on manoeuvres.
Battle for the BBC, a Listening Post special on Al Jazeera.
The ultra-nationalist monks connected with one of the world's worst humanitarian crises.
We don't accept illegally migrants.
Joining with the military to impose a deadly political agenda.
We have to protect our nation.
What has happened to the Rohingya? That's one of the biggest stains upon the country as a whole.
This is not religion. This is a politic.
Myanmar, an unholy alliance on Al Jazeera.
Hello again, Peter Dobby here in Doha. Your top stories from Al Jazeera. EU ambassadors are meeting to discuss the new trade deal with the UK. They are expected to endorse it ahead of full ratification. The two sides have finally agreed a zero-tariff deal after months of tense negotiations. Niamh Barker has more from London.
Here in the UK, the British government has to get the deal through Parliament. Let's not forget, Boris Johnson has a significant majority in Parliament. It's expected to breeze through, especially now that we know that the opposition Labour Party are poised to back it as well, largely on the basis that it is the lesser of two evils, given the very real prospect of a no-deal Brexit that has loomed over the past few weeks or so.
South Korea has recorded its biggest daily increase in coronavirus infections since the start of the pandemic. It reported more than 1,200 new cases as it rolled out its toughest ever restrictions. Japan's Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga is releasing $2.6 billion in funding to help medical facilities treating people who've contracted the coronavirus. The country has been breaking infection records on a daily basis. Pope Francis delivered his annual Christmas Mass at the Vatican. The head of the Roman Catholic Church urged governments to work together to ensure coronavirus vaccine is available to all countries.
May
the Child of Bethlehem help us to be generous, supportive and helpful, especially to those who are vulnerable, sick or facing hardship due to the effects of the pandemic, and women facing domestic violence during the months of lockdown. In the face of a challenge that knows no borders, we cannot erect walls. All of us are in the same boat. Every other person is my brother or sister. In everyone I see reflected the face of God.
France's Notre Dame Cathedral marked Christmas Eve by hosting its first choral concert since it was nearly destroyed by fire last year. The Paris landmark is gradually being rebuilt. Those involved in the service said it was an important moment full of emotion. Those are your headlines. Back now to Lords of Water. I'll have the news hour for you in about 30 minutes. See you then.
As water manager, Brendan is more of a trader than a farmer.
A big stack of grain has a value, that's money. Water is no different in that sense. In our business, we want to use our water efficiently because if we do that, we can drive a greater profit into the business. And that's what we're ultimately here for, is to deliver a profit for the shareholders. These are the things that are interesting or useful.
He manages his stock with the help of a specialized broker, Lex Batters. He too embodies the new generation of businessmen looking to exploit water. For them, drought means good business.
It's worthwhile mentioning it to you, I guess.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
You got any interest in leasing it out? I don't think there's thousands of megalitres on the market at the moment up here. The market doesn't seem to be terribly logical at the moment. In our view, it's a sort of greed and fear market, and it's a bit of a balance between the two.
But that's because of where we are, and there's not that much water around, so people are fairly skittish. Frustrating, maybe. Yeah, that's the way it goes.
Yeah. And look, I think dairy is in such a state down there. The number of herds getting sold at the moment is quite ridiculous. That from what I'm hearing, basically every dairy farm's on the market. So if you did want to do something down there, I think there's acquiring land's not going to be difficult.
Who knows? Yeah, see where it goes to. Who knows? Anyway.
$110 at $80. One on the second saw, 9-inch. So they're both going to be 30. $20 got behind. I'm on $20 now. 5 in front. 30. 5. 40. 50. 50. $50 got here. $50 bid. 60. 70. 80. 90. 100. And 10. And 20. 120 got. You're up, you know up. 120 got. And 80. And 300. 20. 40. 60. 30. And 400. 20, 40. You buying? 15,500 in the corner. 15,500. Anyone else? And 5. 105 behind. 105. It's gone.
That's already?
Yeah.
What did they get for that?
1,800 for that one. I don't know what the little one made.
So you just stopped milking and you sold the farm too, have you?
Yeah.
Those yard blasts, have they had much use?
Never been used.
Never been used.
No.
The water crisis and soaring prices have forced David Owen into bankruptcy. He has had to sell the family dairy farm and now joins the long list of victims of the water markets.
$700. Anyone else? $700. On $700.
It's an end of an era. I've been in this district all my life, so I haven't lived more than 10 kilometres from where I sit. So yeah, it's a special day. Yeah.
6, 7, 8, 6,800, 6, 9, round it up, 6,900, $10 on down, $10 there, $10, $10 gone, $10 everything, $40, I bought $80. What is that metal there, boy?
You look at your cash flows for the last 12 months and 4 years ago, and you realise you're spending more and more on water. And then Jenny said to me, you can't keep going on like this. So that conversation wasn't very nice. Threw my dishes in the sink and stomped out. Yeah, so that was very emotional. Yeah, it's a bit like, it's probably not as much emotion as later on when we were selling cows. I can tell you who her mother is and who her grandmother and great-grandmother. In fact, so they tell me you get over it. I hope so. Yeah.
Pretty handy to have a spare, I know when they break down. 500. 50 start, shouldn't hold it. Yes.
Initially, the creation of water markets was welcomed by farmers. Big agricultural players saw it as an effective way to buy water, whilst others planned to supplement their income by selling their surplus.
350, anyone else? 350 gonna go. We don't. Hold 350.
But 10 years later, the market had become ruthless.
350. I want 3.2 at $350. Last way.
There's lots of people that don't understand the water market. I don't understand the water market. Just unless you keep on to it all the time, you just don't know what's happening. And I don't think a lot of us know what's happening in the water market. Unless you're buying, you don't want to look at the water market because lots of times it only depresses you. Especially if you're looking for water and you think, oh, it'll go down. No, it doesn't. It keeps going up.
Australia is on extreme alert as searing temperatures put emergency crews on notice and authorities ready to answer any major crisis. Records fell today and more are set to tumble tomorrow, with Adelaide forecast to hit 45 degrees, nudging the hottest day on record for the city. The CFS warns it won't be able to control any major...
Adelaide in southeast Australia, the driest city on the driest continent on the planet. Adelaide serves as a think tank. It's here at the university that the idea of water trading was conceived.
And in some years you might get zero water. So they said nobody could take any more water, so you're going to have to find a way to share water. What happened very quickly as a result of work that I did or started doing, I said, well, what we need to do is to unbundle the system and take a license, and you set up a bank-like accounting system and let everybody trade at low cost. And to do that, then all the regulations, and I said, well, why don't...
Mike Young is the founding father of the Australian water markets. A renowned economist, he attended Harvard University and has advised the United Nations. This is the man writing the new history of water.
Water scarcity is really there. So water scarcity is part of the future of the world. The global predictions are that by 2050, more than half the world will be living with limited water resources, and abundance is a thing of the past. Water needs to be managed in a very precious way, in a way that drives innovation, that makes sure our water goes to the best use as it possibly can, so we make money and feed ourselves well. And that led to the interest in water markets and drove a revolution.
The revolution started by Mike Young has turned climate change into a market force.
fascinating to see how sophisticated our water markets have become. If there's rain forecast in a week's time, the price of water will go down because farmers know they won't have to irrigate. If it's going to be really hot for the next fortnight, then the price of water goes up. And I think the reason why you really come to a university is to make the world a better place to live in. So I teach a course on how to make the world a better place to live in. Come and enjoy it. Thank you.
Mike Young has opened up water markets to all: farmers, small savers, and above all, professional investors. Nowadays, everybody can buy water on the stock market for consumption or simply for speculation.
When water becomes scarce, and as it becomes scarcer, then somebody has to stop using it. And what markets do is they discover and reveal the most appropriate people to pull out of agriculture. As it is for making cars, as it is for lots of things, we live in a competitive world.
Markets mature. Spot markets start, derivative markets for water, options, forwards, new intelligence and information systems. We're building artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Well, I suppose we're all in the game to make money, but make a living out of just trading water. So whereas we're just interested in getting water to make, buy water to make a living, not just making a living by buying and selling water. Yeah. So, yeah.
The system was put in for the farmers to create wealth for the economy, but it's been taken from the farmers now. So who's making the money?
Water purchased at the market price has drained the Australian countryside. Only the agricultural giants have the means to compete with the investors, who are pouncing on this new raw material.
At the moment, there's schemes going around the world to encourage investors to buy into the Australian water market with these returns that they're seeing. They own huge amounts of water and they're making huge money out of it.
Is water becoming the new Australian gold?
It is. If you can make a 25% return on your investment or better, well, wouldn't you try and do it?
It was Melbourne's hottest day in 5 years. Temperatures hit 42.3 degrees.
Melbourne City, a high of 42.8 at 1:38 this afternoon. Our hottest day in 5 years. The change hit around 2.
It was still more than 30 degrees at midnight in Melbourne and didn't get much.
The new Lords of Water live in the city of Melbourne, the business capital. They are bankers, insurers, pension and investment fund managers. And they are gradually taking control of this blue gold.
I don't need to own land. You know, would I own land? Would I consider it? Yes, but I'm not a farmer. I'm an investment banker.
How much did you invest?
Not much, maybe $20 million. The price of water has doubled, but in the next 10 years it will double again because of intensive agriculture. There's a lot of discontent between the farmers and the people who are controlling the water. And so the farmers sometimes look at these people as water barons or water bandits because they're controlling water that many times they can't afford.
As an owner of expansive water reserves, David Williams rents his water to farmers, as others would rent land. And the future is looking bright.
If we go to 9 billion population and the Chinese want more food and the Indonesians want more food and the Indians want more food and they can afford to pay for it, then we need to find more intensive ways of growing food. That means more water. And that's going to lead you smack bang into how you get that water, how you price it, how you allocate it, and how you regulate it.
With the big investors buying water, it's getting back to the old days of the landlords and the peasant farmers. And if we want to survive or stay into it, we're going to have to buy the water at what the landlords deem the water is worth. Back to the Middle Ages, yeah.
In the name of fighting global warming, the Lords of Water have made an agreement with the environmentalists. A portion of lake and river water is now protected. It feeds the ecosystem and is kept out of the market. This alliance brought about the large majority vote in favor of water reform.
As I'm talking to you today, we're about to have 7 days in a row here in Adelaide above 37 degrees Celsius. And that is the 4th time in 2 months where we've had that high temperature. Climate change is happening and it's happening now, and it is impacting on the levels of water usage and the water that's being returned to the system. The river's struggling, and so we had to start putting a value on it.
Environmental organizations are now taking advantage of the markets to buy water and return it to nature.
The agriculture industry in Australia is worth billions of dollars. The value of water in Australia is worth even billions more. So if we want to make sure the river is kept alive, if we want to make sure there's water there for the future, we have to engage in that process. That, of course, forced a proper market for water buying and trading. Has Australia got it right yet? No, we don't. We might be the test case. We haven't got it 100% right.
Water was the last remaining natural resource to have escaped trading. But Australia has just blown the final whistle. The time has come for maximum profitability and the creation of wealth.
I'm Narendra Elder. I speak on behalf of my people, on behalf of this land and this water. Water, for me and my people, is a part of who we are. It's a part of our stories, our creation stories. Today is different.
Australia has implemented water markets.
Yeah.
How do you look at that?
We don't like it very much. We don't like it at all. Well, we'll see. We have to paint up everyone else first, okay?
That's the tan line from my paint today. Where's
Selling, trading, what does it? Filling your dams up, making sure that you've got your share, making sure that no one else takes yours. Part of it is madness, and most of it is greed. Greedy people. They want the water, but they also want that. And they'll sell it to somebody else for money. You can't eat money. You can't drink money. Water is like the veins in our body. Earth, Mother Earth, is like our body. The water goes through it. Yeah. The river's got a spirit. The water is a water spirit. It feeds your spirit. Without that spirit, you die. We all know that. Kangaroo. Pinyaling open, pinyaling open. Pinyaling yan, pinyaling open, pinyaling open.
The producers of this program asked Macquarie Group to be interviewed, but they declined. So Aljazeera asked Macquarie to respond to statements made about them in the program. Macquarie replied to say that they took their role in economic and community infrastructure very seriously. That in the time their fund was a shareholder, Thames Water had made $14.7 billion of capital investment, and that this had allowed Thames Water to reduce leakage and to keep bills at a low level. They went on to say that the investment had been financed by profits and borrowing, and had been approved by the UK Water Services regulator, Ofwat. They concluded by saying that Thames Water had paid an average dividend to shareholders of 11% of capital expenditure.
The last stage in the financialization of water. The launch of a stock market index to bet on water prices by NASDAQ, a stock exchange specializing in technology. This is the first time that water has been reduced to an algorithm.
Is water the next oil? We set it up as a question and then mostly dismissed it. That question's not going to go away. We're just probably not ready for it yet.
There is no alternative to pricing water properly and making people realize that every time they take a sip of water, there is an opportunity cost, and they feel it in their wallet.
What about the guy that can't afford it? That guy still needs water.
We won't pay! In Europe, the fight against the financialization of water is fueled by the refusal to accept any sort of privatization. The global water rush is accelerating. Privatization, competition, profit.
When they say it's got to be a commodity, it's because they know that the scarcer it becomes in a world where you desperately need water, there's gold. It's gold. It's blue gold.